Hello everyone, this is Darren of GNB Productions, and today we are going to be asking ourselves a very important question. Are the Deadpool movies any good? You know, the movies that center around the foul-mouthed, fourth-wall-breaking, red-suited assassin. They certainly have received their fair praise over the years, but I haven't seen many look back at them at all recently. So with Deadpool and Wolverine right around the corner, I thought it'd be fun for us to take a look back at these movies and ask ourselves, are the Deadpool movies any good? Deadpool released in February of 2016. The story centers around mercenary Wade Wilson after being faced with the news of having terminal cancer, undergoes an experiment to try and cure himself. The experiment leaves him horribly disfigured, and he goes to hunt down the man that did this to him. I fucking love this movie. I know we're a little early by getting into this, but I just can't talk about this movie without going over how much it means to me. Deadpool is not only just my favorite comic book character, but might very well be my favorite fictional character ever. This character is what got me into comics after playing the pretty cool video game, which we'll discuss at a later date. The fun, wacky bullshit with the deep and sad introspectiveness behind it all enthralled my young mind. I would go out of my way to consume any, and I mean any, form of Deadpool content growing up, whether it be fan films, fan made series, stop motion videos, etc. So when I stumbled across this little teaser featuring Deadpool and the voice being lended by Ryan Reynolds, even though at the time I didn't know it was official test footage, I was ecstatic at the idea of Deadpool getting a movie. Cut to about 2 or 3 years later when the first trailer dropped, and I saw they recreated the sequence from the test footage and even used some of the same jokes. It was truly a surreal experience, to say the least. And I can't stress enough how excited I was, as to this day, no other movie, not even the sequel, would get me this excited. I was so hyped that I wanted to go in completely blind. After the first two trailers, I went out of my way to avoid this movie's promotion like the fucking plague. I didn't want to see a single commercial, not a single clip, not another trailer or TV spot, nothing. And I think a lot of that is the reason why, and I'll get further into it when I get to talking about the second movie, why I can't help but love this one just a bit more. Okay, let's get into the actual movie. The story, while basic, is actually a bit of fun. It's primarily told in a non-linear format with the story bouncing around from past to present, and I honestly think that was the best approach they could have taken with this. It helps the story stand out from being a standard superhero origin story, and most importantly, the writing and dialogue throughout the movie is so well handled that it's really hard to find yourself getting bored. When leading up to the movie, the story and the writing were the main things I was concerned about, because with Deadpool stories, you can really go one of two ways. You can have it be a non-stop barrage of over-the-top, wacky, meme-heavy bullshit, or you could take the approach of giving us a deep and emotional character study. For the most part, they try to do both, and for this movie in particular, I think it was handled fairly well. Both of these movies, behind all the jokes and the over-the-top bloody shenanigans, do have a bit of a heart to them. Going back to the format of the story briefly, I also think that this format just really works for the Deadpool character. Dude is a total nut job, and it playing out this way makes total sense given his character, which is why I find it kind of cool. Something else I find neat is that Wade is kind of the same character all throughout. Now, what I mean when I say this is that when it comes to most superhero stories, you can see the dichotomy between their personalities before and after they adopt their persona. Wade Wilson, on the other hand, was a foul-mouthed, morally gray dickhead, and is still very much that, with the crazy turned up a bit once he runs around as Deadpool. And I don't know, I just find that to be kind of cool. Anyway, yeah, these movies have a bit of heart to them, but I feel like they could have done a better job at emphasizing it. It's a special kind of skill to be able to master silly and wacky shit with a deep and emotional through line and a piece of work. And I don't think these movies have mastered that balance yet. It's not bad, but I think it could have been handled a bit better, especially in the second one, but I'll get to that one later. The writing in this movie is pretty damn good. I've watched this movie God knows how many times to the point where I can almost quote it word for word, bar for bar, and it still manages to be absolutely hilarious to me. With the character of Deadpool and the majority of his shtick being meta fourth wall breaks, that style of humor can get very grating very quickly, but I can safely say that for this movie, it was handled quite well. A lot of the jokes, not even the fourth wall breaking meta ones, are subtle, snappy, and witty, and it's really fun. Well, except for this one.
So I can do right by someone else.
Of course.
And please don't make the super suit green. Or animated.
I don't know, but as time goes on, that one line just gets less and less funny to me. A good portion of the jokes in these movies won't land without some extensive knowledge of the X-Men, which to me kinda sucks. It's not every joke, but a lot just won't land for some without background knowledge of the franchise.
Let us go talk to the professor.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
Either way, the writing is still pretty damn good. Some jokes and sequences go on for a bit too long, but overall, pretty damn good. The characters in this movie are all great, honestly. This is about as great of a Deadpool as we'll get for the foreseeable future. This character can very easily get annoying with the vulgarity and the fourth wall breaks and such, but it's all handled pretty well. His jokes land for me 90% of the time, and generally, he's just fun as hell. His story and arc throughout this movie is surprisingly heartfelt. I'll say that a slight nitpick I have about both of these films is that in comparison to the comics, they don't do the best job at showing the deeper and sadder sides of Wade Wilson as a character for my liking. That said, though, this movie still did an amazing job at making you connect with him emotionally, even if I think more could have been done with it. His love and relationship with Vanessa was honestly pretty cute and wholesome. The drive he feels to go through the experimental procedure for her sake was really convincing, but it's Wade's mutated state and the self-consciousness he feels because of it I wish was given just a bit more attention. Firstly, and this is mainly a nitpick of mine, I just wish they made him look a bit grosser. Like in the scene where he mutates, the makeup looks super moist and makes him look haunting. But later on, in the second movie, it loses the moist look, and it's not really as nasty looking. I just wish they went all in on making him look terrifying like in the comics. Make his skin look a bit more burnt, or hell, remove his pupils while you're at it too, why not? Like watching Doom Patrol and seeing the makeup effects on Negative Man makes me wish we got a more horrific looking Deadpool. Anyway, I just think it would have been nicer to make his self-consciousness take a bigger precedent in the movie, as I think a lot of people can relate to going through horrible accidents and coming out looking completely different, and being in the same boat as Wade's and not knowing if your significant other will look at you the same. I was watching a Fantastic Four video while I was writing this, and it reminded me of the Thing's whole subplot with his girlfriend not accepting him or whatever, and that's what gave me the idea that this could have been done a bit differently. Vanessa as a character isn't particularly noteworthy, and the sequel really doesn't do her any favors in that regard either, but overall, she was fine in the film. Nothing really beyond that, though. Weasel is a pretty fun character. His dynamic and interactions with Wade are consistently entertaining. Same goes for Blind Al, the taxi driver Dope Pinder. Basically all of Deadpool's plucky sidekicks in these movies are a fucking riot. It's a shame that it seems like Weasel won't be returning for the third film because TJ Miller is, well, TJ Miller, but you could have at least recasted the motherfucker because I think he's a pretty fun character to pair off with Wade. I got a nitpick again, and this really isn't the movie's fault, more of just the studio BS. It's a shame that Hydra Bob didn't get any more of a highlight. They just call him Bob in this movie because of the whole owned by Fox thing, but regardless, the dynamic between Deadpool and Hydra Bob was one of the most fun things throughout the comics for me, and I'm a little disappointed he wasn't brought back after the first movie. Still cool to have him in, though. Something I like about some Deadpool stories is that some of them are essentially X-Men light, where the plot revolves around something the X-Men or other heroes in general are doing, and we just follow Deadpool along the adventure. The game had a similar type of story, and it was fun, and I just find it neat that the movies almost take the same sort of approach. We really have to thank this movie for being the first of the Fox films to give the X-Men just a little bit more sauce. The addition of Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus were so very welcome. Their roles, while minor, do leave a big impact, I feel. Negasonic is simple, being the almost typical standoffish teenage character, but she's still an entertaining character, and the back and forth she has with Wade are fun. Colossus I just fucking adore. How can you not love this motherfucker? This ultra sweet, heroic type of guy can often come across as basic, but I don't know what it is, but I just can't get enough of this guy. And his dynamic and relationship with Wade and the potential he sees in him is honestly adorable. I would have never thought Deadpool and Colossus of all characters would have paired off so well. I'd like to take a brief moment to point out the irony and how in the comics Wade wanted nothing more than to be an X-Man or part of a big superhero team in general, only for him in the movies to be very against it. Whereas Spider-Man in the comics is very content and prefers to be more of a solo act, whereas the movies make him this ultra Avengers fanboy in his debut. Nothing is wrong with this stuff, it's just something that I noticed. The cast of this movie is just fucking phenomenal. Every single person here does an almost perfect job. Ryan Reynolds is genuinely perfect in this role. I know I say this about a lot of actors and characters, but deadass, I can't think of another person who could pull this character off so well. Like, genuinely, in the comments, if Ryan Reynolds were to retire from this character, who else do you think could pull it off as well as he does? I really want to know. I know I didn't talk about the villains much, but honestly, that's because writing wise, they aren't anything to write home about. But Ajax is a villain you very much love to hate, and Ed Skrein does an amazing job at bringing that to life. Marina Baccarin was amazing as Vanessa, and her and Ryan shared some pretty good chemistry together. I'm sorry if I pronounce any of these names wrong, by the way. Leslie Uggams as Blind Al, Karan Soni as Dopinder, Brianna Hillbrand as Negasonic, all just simply phenomenal. Overall, the first Deadpool movie is just a fun movie. When you really look at it, it is really just a basic superhero origin movie, but it's elevated with an interesting story structure, a main character that is fun to follow and is easy to emotionally relate to, very consistently witty and fun humor, an absolutely amazing cast that all work and bounce off one another greatly. And even though I didn't bring it up, the action and fight choreography is a shit ton of fun, and they made good work with the R rating. Overall, Deadpool 1 is a fairly simple but fun movie. Now on to the sequel. The story of Deadpool 2 revolves around Wade after the death of Vanessa, aiming to protect this young mutant boy named Russell from this soldier from the future who goes by the name Cable. I have a lot of problems with Deadpool 2. Now, I still love this movie, but not as much as the first one. The story for this movie is significantly more ambitious than the first one, which I think was both to its benefit and to its detriment, in my opinion. They try to do a lot, and not all of it ends up landing for me personally. I've seen the rhetoric surrounding which of these films are better be a bit skewed. But where I stand is that while this movie has better action and better humor, the first movie had a better and more tightly knit story, if you ask me. Firstly, I want to point out how visually amazing this movie looks. I don't know the budget for the first movie, but you can immediately tell that this one got a significant increase with its amazing directing and visuals. Something else I want to bring up is that these movies have very great openers. They really leave an impression and are a great introduction into this wacky world. I say this now because something else that got a noticeable uptick is the fight choreography. Like, the fight scenes and choreography in the first movie were good, don't get me wrong, but they went all in with the fights in this movie. They just kick so much ass. Deadpool as a character has a very chaotic and free flow style of combat, and it's nice to see that kind of brought to life properly in this movie. I also like how they show his versatility as a killer. There's a moment where he doesn't have any weapons or ammo, so he just uses a brick to fight his opponents, and I don't know, it's just kind of cool. Now, the first of many problems I have with this movie is the treatment of Vanessa. After the whole last movie, she gets killed off immediately, basically making her nothing but a driving force for Wade's story, which to me kinda sucks. I do like how they kinda use her as this Lady Death figure, where Wade will run into her whenever he has a near deadly experience, but other than that, it just kinda feels disrespectful to play off a character like this. This movie is also where they start to show the cracks when it comes to the fourth wall breaking meta humor. In the first movie, it never really got too gratuitous, but here they really start to push their luck. They do the lazy writing joke not once, which is already bad enough for me, but twice. Making jokes about your writing being lazy doesn't make it any less lazy, goddammit. The comedy in this movie in general can just be a bit much for me sometimes. Remember how earlier I said that Deadpool's style of humor can very easily become annoying? Yeah, Deadpool 2 is where we kind of start to get into that territory. For every gut-busting joke or sequence that happens in this movie, there's almost one super unnecessary or drawn-out joke to compensate. This movie is also what I was referring to when I said that these movies don't have the best balance when it comes to its tone. So many emotional or heartfelt moments get preceded with little jokes that kinda feel out of place to me. The ending scene with Wade's quote-unquote death will always piss me off, because the bit of him thinking he's dead only for him to be alive gets so old so damn fast, and kills any sort of heart the scene could have had. That's not to say it was all terrible though, because the jokes in this movie, when they are good, they are really fucking good. The entire sequence with the X-Force team has yet to not crack me the hell up, and the gag with Deadpool's baby legs was absolutely hysterical as well. In fact, I love how much these movies play around with Wade's healing powers in general. It's a lot of fun. This movie, compared to the first, does attempt to have a bit more of a heart to it, with the themes of family and finding someone or something to belong to not so subtly sprinkled throughout. And I'll say that for the most part, it does work pretty well. The writing is really good at getting you to emotionally connect with the narrative. It isn't given the most amount of dedication as I wish it did, but for the most part, it still was pretty effective. The characters in the film are all pretty great. All the characters from the previous film return, but with a few newcomers. First, I have to bring up is Wade himself. Wade's arc in this movie I thought was absolutely amazing. After the death of Vanessa, he's basically given up on everyone and everything, and it's his growing relationship with Russell that puts him on the right path. I also just love how more of Wade's comic characterization comes into play here. Him geeking out over Juggernaut was absolutely amazing, and it's just those subtle things of him being a huge fan of these big Marvel figures that I love so much. Also, his first line in the movie being "fuck Wolverine" was such an inspired choice. Every returning character was great. We get more bits with Wade and Weasel that were fun. Blind Owl was cool. Dopinder wanting to become a contract killer was a hilarious running gag, and it was all super fun. Wade and Colossus's relationship getting strained further was cool, and the Wade and Yukio bits were super cute. The newer characters added in were all great too. I almost don't even want to count the X-Force guys, because their entire purpose was just to die, but for the brief time they were on screen, they were kind of fun. Domino as a character has little to no purpose throughout the entire film, but you honestly don't care because Zazie Beetz' performance is just so charismatic and infectious. Cable is undoubtedly the big standout for the movie. Longtime X-Men fans couldn't wait to see this guy brought to life, and this included me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a giant Cable mega fan. I was introduced to him from the Deadpool video game, and recently got more into the character when watching the X-Men animated series. But regardless, I was really looking forward to this character's inclusion. Needless to say, he was fucking amazing. I never would have thought that Cable would have played the antagonist role so well, but it works greatly. His dynamic with Wade is absolutely amazing and is a major highlight of the film. They play off of each other so well throughout, and that includes the scenes before they start working together. Cable's arc throughout the movie is a bit meh. It's not anything special. Him going out of his way to save Wade didn't feel particularly earned for me, but overall, his inclusion in the film was great. I absolutely adore Juggernaut's inclusion in this film for a multitude of reasons. First of which being that he was hidden very well from the marketing, so it was a genuine surprise to see him here in the film. And it's the Deadpool franchise's second attempt to bring just a bit more sauce into the Fox universe of X-Men films. And the voice provided by Ryan Reynolds is legitimately amazing. When I found out that it was him who was voicing Juggernaut, it blew my fucking mind. The cast overall kind of makes up for the meh character writing, if I'm being honest. Julian Dennison turned Russell into what would normally be an annoying and grating character to me into an extremely charming, adorable, and wholesome-ass performance. I'll be honest and say that Cable wouldn't have been as interesting or entertaining without Josh Brolin, cause lines like these,
"Russell's not gonna kill anyone. Because of me, he's gonna know what real love looks like.
We're all gonna die.
Because of you, I'll always know what a grown man with baby balls looks like.
still get a kick out of me solely because of Brolin's delivery. I already mentioned how much of my enjoyment of Domino came from Zazzy's performance. Something I don't see many people bring up for both films are their really good soundtracks. Maybe it's just me, but the opening needle drop of Angel in the Morning will always be iconic for me and synonymous with the Deadpool movies. Same goes for the second film with an original piece by Celine Dion being Ashes, which is fucking incredible. It's small bits like them using Team Headkick's Deadpool rap, which fucking blew my mind. Stuff like Annie's Tomorrow was used very effectively. Welcome to the Party was used greatly as well. In the first movie, the trippy feel of Wade's torture was brilliantly brought together by Mr. Sandman. And the second film's absolutely beautiful usage of Take On Me of all songs was just amazing. The soundtracks of these movies are genuinely great, and I'm shocked not many other folks talk about them. Overall, Deadpool 2 is a little complicated for me. I absolutely love this movie to bits, but man, it has a lot of stuff that bothers me. The goofy tone slightly conflicts with the hardened message the movie tries to go for a bit too much for my liking. The comedy and jokes, while funny for the most part, are often dragged out a bit too long, especially during inopportune moments. And the meta humor just went fucking crazy, and normally that wouldn't be a bad thing for me, but it gets to a point where it's less subtle and charming and more just kind of forced in there, and is used as a crutch for lazy writing. I also fucking hate the end credit scene. Is it fun to watch Deadpool go around and do wacky shit with time travel? Yes. Was it fun to watch him kill the X-Men Origins version of himself? Also yes. Was it funny to watch him kill Ryan Reynolds before he could make Green Lantern? Absolutely. Was it fun to watch him basically undo the entire movie you just watched right before your very eyes, rendering it entirely pointless? No, god damn it! But on the other hand, the action and choreography was amazing, the character writing and performances were amazing, and the gags, when they're good, they are really damn good. And the heartfelt moments are done greatly as well. Deadpool 2 is a fun but complicated movie for me. But let us ask the important question of the day. Are the Deadpool movies any good? Yes, but that's kind of just it. They're just good movies. They aren't groundbreaking or anything, but for what they are, they're just simple and fun movies with great action, music, visuals, characters, performances, heart and soul, and definitely leave an everlasting impression. So, with all that said, if you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video, let me know right down there in the comments below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. This is Darian of GNB Productions, and take care.